Hey everybody, Tech Talk Tuesday is coming up right now. Get ready everybody. We're going to talk about all kind of things today. We're going to talk about a little bit of history. We're going to talk about some rings. We're going to talk about cylinder sealing. Charlie, Chuck, Greg, hey Charlie, hey Kevin. I want to tell you guys, Alan, some of you guys that, hey Kevin, some of you guys that watch all the time, I know some of you would think that I kind of go over ring seal as a broken record kind of thing. Hey, Jack, hey, Greg. But I noticed that with the questions I get from the people that watch, I get some guys that watch this almost every episode, and they send me some questions, which I'm very thankful for any feedback. But I have learned that I don't, just because I say it on here doesn't necessarily mean you understand what I'm saying or you grab what I'm putting down. You're picking up what I'm putting down, however you say it. But everybody learns at a different rate, and everybody, we only know what we know. And I was listening to the radio today, and I noticed on the radio today, I was working in there, we were selling some cams and a few other little things, and I noticed that they had an old record on, an old song playing, and the old guy there, he's dead and gone now, but he had a really cool band, and he was from like the grunge scene in Seattle, and he was singing about all we know is what we know, and all we know is what we know. And if you know who I'm talking about and you know the band, that'd be pretty interesting. But it really hit me right between the eyes, because all we know is what we know. And the hope that I have with this Tech Talk, this is number 129. 129 episodes in a row every Tuesday. Thank y'all. Hey, Harold, Pierre, Ed, Jim, Ed, Theodore, John Aylwine. Hey, John, good to see you, man. I'm glad you're up and around. Some great names. I love seeing you guys come through here, and David. Yep. So if you can remember the band from Seattle that had the song where the words at the end of the song were, all we know is all we know. And when somebody, never mind. Look at you go, Kevin. That's right. Kurt Cobain. He sang all we know is all we know. Anyway, it was pretty funny, but wow, what about that, man? All we know is all we know. And what I would hope to do when we turn this off today, I want you to know more than you did getting here about cylinder sealing and rings and stuff. Good job, you guys, coming on here with all kind of spelling of Nirvana. Hey, Charlie. Yeah, oh, and I got this here's a really nice oldie but goodie shirt here. This is a sweatshirt from back in the day, back when we were number one in pro stock motorcycles and some good times. But I'm gonna tell you that a little bit about that history, and then I want to talk to you about some. I brought some props today to show you some real Total Seal stuff, and talk to you about it. I'm a big fan of Total Seal. They do a good job of promoting our sport. They do a good job of promoting what we do, and you and me. And they make rings for your package, and I'm a fan because they're right there in Arizona. They take some really nice parts that are available out there, modify them to make them better, or they build them from scratch to make them better. But it would be really hard to, hey Erica, it would be hard to run car stuff, V8, Dodge, Chrysler, Mopar, Chevrolet, Ford, AMC, Harley, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Yamaha, everything I forgot to say, Briggs and Stratton, everything, without a really nice set. Hey, Brian, a really nice set of well-built rings that are inside of a well-built piston that has the ringlands made to control the rings and the rings made to fit the pistons. So back to that story, what I always did was I would always call the guys at Total Seal first and tell them what my project is. And they do a good job of keeping that to themselves. It's nobody's business. They're not advertising, that George is doing this and Matt's doing that and Tom's doing this and Billy's doing that. They don't care about that. That's nobody else's business. But what I have enjoyed for all the years I've been dealing with those guys is they're full of advice. They got all kind of ancillary and complementary tooling and measurement stuff. I got my a motorized ring grinder from them where I can set the end gaps, which we'll talk about in a little while. Also, I got my profilometer where I can actually measure the peaks and valleys of the hone finish and the how rough or how smooth or whatever I want to see in the cylinder wall finish. Microscopically, they blow it up, make it good. Now back in 20 years ago, back when we were winning a lot with the Pro Stock stuff, these were all kind of secrets. How to hone a cylinder correctly, what rings to buy, how to put the rings in, cylinder wall finish, why and how. All that stuff was so well guarded secrets. And today, I'm still sure of it, that there are people out there that keep that information close to their vest, because once they have an advantage in that highly contested world of how to outrun your neighbor or how to outrun the guy in the next pit area with the same rules and the same pieces, basically, you got to come up with some advantages to use to help you win. Now, all of this, please understand, it's easy for George at Star Racing to talk about racing. But what we have found over the years, and this is 40-something years now, we found out that what we do in racing, the things we learned in drag racing, the things we learned in road racing and high performance and motorsports, we were able to translate to every engine we build. Like right now, if I was to build an SS396 for a Chevelle or a Nova or Camaro, man, I would be so excited to use 2022 information and technology and parts and pieces based on all the years I learned in racing. Man, what a great time it is to build engines. What a great time it is to work on that kind of stuff. Given the fact that we have material issues we all know about, if there's anybody watching this show right now that doesn't understand how hard it is to get parts, you just been in the bed with the phone off and the TV off. But I'm telling you, man, it's hard to get stuff now. Thank you for that feedback, you guys. Charlie, Reggie, you guys that are watching, you can hear me good. I'm not going to waste a whole bunch of time talking about that. I keep looking up at the clock to see where I am, because I'm trying to be a little bit close on me trying to make it a little bit less than a 30-minute show. I'm trying not to lose the audience by boring you to death. So I have some stuff I want to share. Hey, Sam. Hey, Reggie. You guys slay me with keeping up. I'm going to show you a little bit. Go to the board now, and then I'll talk about a couple other little things. But let's go to the board. Hold your ears for a minute so I'm rattling this microphone. It'll quit in a minute. There's a nice shot of the ceiling. All right, everybody, you can see that this is Tech Talk 129, and I am so blessed to have information, knowledge, opportunity, experience, and that's why I always put my cross, because none of it would be possible if I didn't have the good Lord blessing me with all this. And for me now, at this point in my career in 2022, I understand how important it is to share that, because it was all a gift to me. And the only thing I know to do with a gift is to give it. So I'm not in competition trying to beat you anymore, but I am trying to share the gifts that were given to me by my Lord and Savior. And I feel obligated in a way to share as much as I can with you guys, because that's the gift I was given. So that's the preaching right there for the day. All right, thank you, Ronnie, for that. That's wonderful. Eric and Mike. Okay, let's step backwards real quick and go to, I want to tell you, some of you guys know this, and some of you don't, but we had a Suzuki-powered dragster. And this picture, this shot is really hard to tell. This is the wing. That's Jackie. That's old Jerry Cooper. He was working for us at the time. I got him from Charlie Gressman. I think Charlie got him out of the Navy, and I got him from Charlie. This is me in the dragster here, and Cosman made this car. Sorry about the picture. But it had a Suzuki rear engine, turbo, with a little nitrous, and the motorcycle-powered dragster record at the time was 880. I think a couple of guys were maybe going 870s. This was a four-wheel motorcycle-powered car. And my boys at Star Racing and Sandy Cosman, we took a Suzuki 1327 GS 1100, and we put a Mr. Turbo kit on it and a little small 50 shot, and a Orient Express 3-speed transmission, a chain and sprockets, a pair of 9-inch tires off of the Pro Stock motorcycle, and we went 775 in the quarter. at 175 miles an hour. Now that wing right there didn't work well. This is at Atco, and I was going down the track. This car was just sashaying all the way down the track. And it was just spinning and spinning and spinning. And I called Sandy Cosman back and told him I can't hook it up. We got to pull a couple hundred horsepower out of it to get it to go on the track. He said, let's put a double element wing on it. He said, I know a guy that makes a carbon fiber one. So he made a double element wing that actually bolted onto the back of this car. And it was way up high. It was high and behind the car. It was like the car was here. And the wing bolted on. This is the back tire, and the wing bolted on here, and the double element wing was here. And it put so much force going down the track. These were upside down airplane wings, and they were just trying to push it down, and we picked up 3/4 of a second by putting this wing on. Back to back. Took it off, spun the tires all the way down the track going into 8s, bolted the wing on, went 775. Anyway, it was a great time, great learning experience. So that was some fun. And that, according to the wonderful historians at Auto Imagery, it says that this photo was taken in 1991. Y'all, how long ago was that? 2001, 2011, oh, wow, it's 30 years ago, isn't it? Somebody do the math for me. Yeah, that photo is messing them wheels up, but alignment was great. It had A-arms. Another thing that was neat about this little car is it had brakes on the front wheels, so I could actually do a proper burnout. Anyway, Jeff, you should see that thing go down. Yeah, it does look like the wheels are, like it doesn't have enough camber in it, but they were actually, that photo's got that jacked up. Yeah, but they were actually pretty straight. Yeah, that looks a little better. Now they got camber. Look at that. I tilted the photo and I got camber. I got a camera, all right, for a head. Yes, Sandy was very clever. Now this one, I just found this one by accident, and this is worth a shout out. Here's the late, great John Myers in winter circle at Pomona at the World Finals. And our great historians and friends at Auto Imagery said, what does it say? Come on, I'm getting dizzy. Come on, look right here, camera. Look right here. Where's the camera? Oh, y'all, this is aggravating. 1990. I am so sorry it took me that long to figure out. Sorry, that was not my friends at Auto Imagery. That was the late, great Les Welch. He was also a fantastic photographer. But what I wanted to show you was this is the late, great Bob Glidden standing beside John. Miss Winston, Deb Britson, she was so graceful and so wonderful to work with at Team Winston. She just always made everybody feel special. And look at this one, Ace, Ed McCullough. He's an icon in the Miller Draft Highlight Beer Dragster, and then Joe Amato. Now this is 4 super champions right here. Very, very proud of this. Bob Glidden won that race in his Motorcraft Ford. John Myers won on his Star Racing Suzuki. Ed the Ace won in his funny car, beautiful gold funny car. And Joe Amato won in Top Fuel Dragster. And these guys, oh my gosh, 130, 75, 30, 100. Shoot, man, couple hundred Wallies and championships here, man. These guys were great. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. We were very, very excited about that opportunity in our career. Okay, good with the history. You guys didn't run off too bad. I saw a couple of you leave, so I'm going to get back on. Hey, Derek. Hey, Joseph. Jeff. That's cool, huh? Good stuff. Thank you all for watching that. All right. I'm going to take this top groove, and I want to tell you about Total Seal. See this drawing on this paper? This is their package. This shows a gapless ring. It shows the gap, and then it shows this little ring underneath the gap. And if you look real close, you can see how this ring is cut out right here for the little thin gapless ring to go up under that ring. And Total Seal is famous for that. Here's the misunderstanding. everyone, not everyone, but a large majority of people in our industry and that want to be in our industry that are hot rodders, they read, oh, he's got total seal rings. Listen to me, y'all. That does not mean it's gapless. That is the name of the company. The company sells gapless rings. I don't use gapless rings. Many people do, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about my style and why. And I don't need gapless rings because I believe that the 1 or 2 horsepower you may find in certain temperature applications are not needed on the street, nor really, really high RPM. Sometimes I think we need to have less mass and less weight. And I can get a good argument out of my friends at Total Seal. But guys, Total Seal, right here in Phoenix, Arizona, they make these rings, all these rings for us. But I'm going to show you this top ring. Now, this label here says that it is an advanced profile, 4505 bore. It's an 035 radial height, axial height. It's a 126C 33 steel top ring. That is the finish. The advanced profile makes it a really high dollar part. Now this ring looks tiny. Remember, it's less than a millimeter thick. It's really narrow. I think it's 180. Let me see. 126 radial width. It's only, let me get the caliper and I'll show you what that means. We're just going to learn a little bit about these part numbers and what they mean. All right, this ring, and just with a rough caliper that is zeroed out nice, pretty nice, within one. This ring is 036 wide, so that is a very, very narrow ring. The radial width of this ring maybe it's 134 wide. What's really good about that, instead of being 180 or 200 wide this way, a couple things that are good about it. It ends up with a little less tension, so it doesn't extremely wear out the cylinder bores. Also, it gives you more room for valve pockets. And when you have really big valves in your piston, sometimes you need to be careful with how deep and how wide the top ring is so that it doesn't go through. A deep, wide ring will go through and get into these valve pockets, and you end up with a lot of trouble in your build. This is a real high compression Milwaukee 8 piston, and I wrote on here to remind me, just because you can use something like this doesn't mean you should use something like this. That's just something to make me laugh. But yeah, this is a big Milwaukee 8 piston, and it uses these really nice rings. This is how good a 0.9 top ring should fit. This is called 0.9 millimeter, which is 036. That's 0.9 of a millimeter. Okay, so I just wanted to show you, this is 4.5 bore, and on the label it said right here, 4505. Now, the 505 means that it's 5 thou oversized. So when you put this in a 4.5 bore, this is going to butt. The ring lands are going to butt. I mean, the end gaps are going to butt like this. They're going to touch. And if you didn't check this and you just bolt it in and go down the road and this ring gets hot, these right here will butt, and then the rings won't work and they won't seal, and it will get all kind of wear. It'll burn up in the piston. It will create, it will micro weld and transfer all the heat down into the bores and burn your skirts up and do a lot of blow by and blow oil out of your air cleaner and all kinds of stuff. I'll go back to that in a minute, but I want to also show you, this is the Total Seal second groove. It has the same picture on the second groove. This is the Total Seal logo. This is their logo. They've got a picture of a gapless ring on it, but all of their rings are not gapless. They sell gapless rings, but I don't use them, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I know I said that, but this is the second ring. Now let me show you that this is also a very thin I need to learn how to focus this better. Yep, I'm not doing really good at that. Here we go. This is a Napier, and a Napier has an odd shape to it. I drew a picture of it because I'm struggling with the visual. This is the top ring. It's an AP, Advanced Profile. That means it has a really nice barrel face finish. And it contacts the cylinder wall in the center when the piston's straight up and down. It's very important for us to try and keep our piston up and going straight up and down so that we keep the ring 90 degrees to the bore. Another reason I like a thin top ring like this, it's lightweight, it follows the piston. I've mentioned this several times in Tech Talk that when the piston's going up 100 times and down 100 times a second, when the piston stops at TDC, the ring keeps going. When the piston stops at the bottom, the ring keeps going. It's inertia, it's momentum, and a heavy ring that we think that our industry and our historians believe that a thicker ring seals better. They think a thicker ring is for endurance. And the only thing a thick ring does well is run in an air compressor at really low RPM, and it takes more heat out of the piston and puts it into the cylinder wall. This ring needs to be big enough, it needs to be thick enough, and it needs to be wide enough to transfer the heat out of the crown of the piston into the cylinder wall. This is a cooling device, and it seals the pressure. I was telling a friend of mine today that when the top ring is in this piston, all the pressure in the bore and stroke and chamber, all the pressure that pushes this piston down is sitting on top of this top ring. So it really matters how well it's supported, and it really matters how strong this piece is. Because when this is in the ring land and 1,000 PSI pushes on this ring, it tries to bend it. So a cast ring or a really soft ring sometimes seats up nice and gives you good leak down test, which is a static measurement of your cylinder pressure that you're containing inside your engine. And leak down it's not that great. It's just what's going on when the engine's not running. But you really want this sealed up good when the engine's running at peak speed, peak torque, peak horsepower, and peak RPM. You want this ring to seal up. That will show up as blow by and lack of crankcase pressure. And there's a lot of people talk about vacuum and whatnot, and vacuum is the absence of pressure. So if you can pull vacuum on the crankcase in a racing engine with a vacuum pump or a one-way valve in the exhaust system or something to pull negative pressure, there's so much positive pressure on top of this ring that leaks by and goes in the bottom end and pressurizes the lower end. It's hard to get vacuum because vacuum has to overpower the pressure. And when the vacuum that you're pulling under the rings exceeds the pressure that's leaking by, then it will show absence of pressure and start creating vacuum. I know that's a little bit over the top, and then the Napier ring that I was trying to show you in my camera wouldn't show it as well, but it's a reverse taper like a squeegee, and then it has this hook. It gives us less cross section here. So if this is an 036 ring, we may have only 020 on the taper, which scrapes the oil off, and this is where it builds up and drains back. The Napier is a really great ring. It is not a compression ring. In two strokes, sometimes we see two rings, maybe back in the day, and they had two compression rings. They had a top ring that would hold compression, and they had a second ring that would hold compression. But this is not a two-stroke. This is a four-stroke, and this is not a compression ring. The second ring is not a compression ring. It is an oil control ring. And this little scraper is like a windshield wiper on your car, peeling the rain off your windshield. This little squeegee peels the oil off your cylinder wall and sends it down the piston. All right, I'm going to talk about end gap for a minute. This is going to take a little imagination because I don't have the math in front of me, but I want to tell you, if you took this 4.5 bore and you straighten this ring out and you made it a long piece of wire, this ring would be 13 or 14 inches long. It would be over a foot, okay? And when people tell you to make sure that you end gap, you grind the end of this. When this is installed in the cylinder, dead straight, you want to be able to see like 20 or 22 thou in this gap right here when it's in the bore, okay? If it's less than that, I want you to understand this 13 inches of steel. This is if you measured how long this is, here's an inch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 inches long, this ring. It grows in length. This wire gets longer. And if it gets 10 thousandths longer, when it gets up to 500 or 1,000 degrees, and if this ring gets 10 thousandths longer in length, this little baby 20 gap we put here is going to close up. And if this wire grows 20 thousandths longer in length, and you grind this end gap to 20 thou with a feeler gauge with it inside the bore, as soon as we get hot and as soon as we get to operating temperature, this is going to close to zero. And in a perfect world, at peak temperature, at peak cylinder pressure, and at peak RPM, you would want this wire to grow to the length where this is zero. And when we take our engine apart after hard use, we use a light and a magnifying glass to inspect the end and see if there's any butting marks. And if there are no butting marks where they've been touching and banging, and when they get up here and they bottom out and there's no more travel here, the ring can't work anymore because it is solid. It needs to be able to grow in length. It needs to get hot and cold and hot and cold. And when you do a leak down test with this ring and you've got it in here with 20 thou end gap and you show 5 or 10% leak, some of it's coming by. So when you do a leak down with a really nice ring like this, you're going to show more leak down than you'd think you're supposed to see. But listen, that's cold or warm, sitting still. This ring is not working. But when you get this engine up to operating temperature, this ring grows in length and closes this gap shut, so there will be no leak down. And you want no leak down at 7,000 RPM or 6,000 RPM, or going down the highway, you want no leak down and you want no gap. But sitting still with it in the engine, idling in your garage, or checking it with a leak down tester, you want this to have a nice gap to it so it can grow and grow and close up and open up and close up and open up. As the bore changes, it's going to move in and out, going up and down the bore, because nobody's bore is straight. We try to make it straight. We try to make it true, try to make it round. But when you're going down the road at full power or maximum effort, the bores are not round, so this ring has to move. All right, back to that. When you race, like we were doing, we had vacuum pump and we had crankcase pressure sensors so we could see when we would pull a vacuum. And when we could pull 20 or 25 inches of vacuum on the crankcase, we knew we had no leak by the rings, especially with it running at maximum speed. Now this ring, it has to seal the combustion, it has to transfer the heat out of the crown into the cylinder wall. And the crown is this. This is that big slug of aluminum. It's thick, it's heavy. If you were to saw this off, it would look like a puck, a big aluminum puck. It gets hot, it expands, it grows, and you want the ring to be able to move with it. So I'm a fan of this style ring, and I'm a fan of Total Seal. And another thing is, if you get the thick rings that are thick radially and they're thick axially, it ends up being heavy, and it wants to have a mind of its own when the piston goes up and down. The ring keeps going. Also, if it's heavy, it doesn't conform well. This ring is kind of lightweight, and it's very conformable, and it just doesn't wear out the cylinder walls like you think it would. Another big last little myth that I see and hear on the internet every day is these gas ports. They say you don't want gas ports, especially these ones on the top, because they wear out your rings. Well, I'm telling you, that does not happen. These gas ports only work when they work, and they only work when there's pressure in this cylinder. There's pressure up here, and that's when you want the rings to work. And when there is no pressure up here, the rings relax. So don't buy high-tension, big, fat rings that have tension all the time. You only want them to have tension when they have tension. No, you only want them to have tension when they need tension. It's like me in high school. I couldn't hardly pay attention. All right. I spent enough time on that. I wanted to tell you guys again, thank you so much for watching. I got so much more to cover about this, and I don't want anyone to seem or to think this is repetitive or I'm talking about the same thing every week. I just really like for you to understand a little bit more about what I think is important here, because last thing, I don't care if you got the best cylinder heads in the world, the biggest valves, the best cam, and some guy that's some magician that can make more airflow than anybody. He's useless without this. Because if your rings aren't sealed up and your bore and hone is not finished and round, and your pistons are just cheap off-the-shelf pistons that are made to fit anybody's program, it doesn't matter how good your cylinder head is. It all goes by. It's like a swimming pool with big leaks in it. It don't hold much water. Thank y'all for Tech Talk 129. Thank y'all for your attention. Thank you for sharing my passion for these items and these ideas and this information. I'm very, very thankful for it, and I'm very passionate about it, and I would love for you to know more about it. And I love teaching y'all while I learn, and I learn while I teach y'all. So thank you so much. May God bless y'all. Tech Talk 129 is in the book. Guess what? Next week, 1:30. Hey. See you next Tuesday. God bless. Good night.